Well, this is Princess Angelique Monét, and we are back. Day number 2 at the Hamptons International Film Festival at the Wolfer Estate. Now, I have the pleasure of being with this gentleman right here. You have an amazing film. I've heard a lot about it, a lot of talks here in the Hamptons. So why don't you tell us about the film?
Well, You've Been Trumped is a David and Goliath story for the 21st century. It tells the story of Donald Trump building a golf course resort on a stretch of unique wilderness in Scotland, an area that was supposed to be protected from development. And the Scottish government gave Mr. Trump the go-ahead to build a 2-golf course resort with 1,500 houses, a skyscraper hotel on this area that's supposed to be protected. And the story really follows, the film follows the local residents who objected to the resort. It gives them a voice, really, but it also gets to the environmental impact of this development, and we see that in the film.
I don't have so much to say right now because that, I'm actually into world peace and love, and, commercialism is where the world is going right now. What made you make this film specifically?
Well, I live about 45 miles south of where Donald Trump decided to build this development. And as you say, all over the world, people are trying to balance economic gain against the impact on the environment of development. And so I felt that really the story of that wasn't being told by the local press. They seem to only be telling the story of the jobs that were promised. Donald Trump said that 6,000 jobs would be created across Scotland by this development, and the Scottish government believed him. However, in that area of Scotland, there was only 1% unemployment. It's not an economy on its knees. It wasn't an economy that needed saving as such. It's a very successful economy. And I felt that really the local residents were just not being given a voice. They felt very passionately that this development shouldn't happen. And I felt that as a filmmaker, it was always my duty, really, to try and follow the story.
Exactly. So what is the end result currently with this? I mean, is there going to be... Tell us the end result.
Well, some of your viewers, might have seen the classic film Local Hero, starring Burt Lancaster, which was made back in the 1980s. And we use clips of that film, in our documentary, because the parallel story is so uncanny, really. In that film, Burt Lancaster was going to develop his character was going to develop an oil refinery in this small Scottish village. And in the end decided not to do it. He went away. In this film, we don't really know what the ending is. I mean, Donald Trump is still building the golf course. I mean, it's still happening. The first golf course has been constructed. The hotel and the housing hasn't been built yet. And so the campaigners are hoping that he packs up, that he decides to sell the development without that aspect being built. That's their hope. And I think as well there's a story unfolding with Donald Trump objecting to an offshore wind farm just off the coast, saying that it's going to spoil the view for people playing the golf course. And so he's also saying that the Scottish government promised him that wouldn't happen, that this offshore wind farm would never be built. And so there is a story there unfolding as it happens that could pull... I wouldn't be surprised if he said, for example, because of that, I'm going to get out of this development and I'm not going to continue with it because I was promised there would be no wind farm off the coast, and that's exactly what's happening. So we don't know where it's going to end, but at the moment we do know that it's had a major impact on the environment.
Well, it's amazing that this gentleman here has made a film that's going to help the world, and you're also a filmmaker. So tell us more about your films. Is it documentary filmmaking, fantasy, narrative?
Well, I've always been into documentaries and made quite a lot of radio documentaries and shorter films. This is the longest film I've done. I mean, I have done some fiction films, but mainly only short films. But this was really just a story that I wanted to tell. So I remortgaged the house. We did crowdfunding to try and get people to support it. We had over 400 people from 20 countries supporting our crowdfunding campaign. There's a Scottish musician called Kareem Polwood who has donated a song to help us with the crowdfunding. And there's also Sigur Rós and Jonsi have donated their music for free for the film's festival run. So we've had a lot of support because a lot of people share, I think, our view that this was a story that needed to be told.
Well, it is a story that needs to be told. So what's the next step? You're here at the Hamptons International Film Festival, and what's the next step for distribution so that everyone can see this film?
Well, that's what we're working to at the moment. We want to get the film distributed. We want to get it into theatres. You know, Donald Trump was in Scotland recently and he said he hadn't seen the film, but he'd heard it was boring. And he said if I wanted to give him a copy on DVD to watch on his 757, he'd be happy to watch it. But my response is, he may be used to getting special treatment, but he should come and watch it in the cinema like everybody else. And I'd like to bring it into more theatres. I think it's a very important film for our generation, really. And I think when we've been showing it in theatres, it has a real impact. People want to talk about it in the cafes and the bars afterwards and talk about the issues that it raises. And it's a powerful film. And I think that to get it out into theatres here in the United States would be fantastic. And so our current drive is to find a distributor who will take it on.
Well, you will. This gentleman will, because anything that you believe in and you have passion will happen. And that's what we have to do what we love.
Well, I think so. I think you've just got to follow your heart with these kind of stories and just see where it ends. I mean, I didn't set out to make a 95-minute feature film. It's how it's emerged, really, because the audiences have told us they wanted to see it. I was always told that people wouldn't come to the cinema to watch a film like this, but we showed it in Aberdeen and Scotland, and we had the fastest advanced ticket sales since the first Harry Potter film. So, we've been showing there is an audience for this kind of film. It's not, some of the commissioning editors would tell you otherwise. They would say, nobody would come and watch this kind of film in a cinema. But I think people want to be challenged by documentaries. They want to talk about issues that matter to them. And we can see from the Wall Street protests just how important this issue of money, power and dominance and people not feeling they have a voice and how they want to have that voice heard. And really that's what this film is all about.
And I make this statement, it will be the greatest golf course anywhere in the world, greatest golf course anywhere in the world, greatest golf course anywhere in the world.
It's my home. I've stayed here for 43 years now. And he won't put me out of it.
I don't need it. It's not in the way of what I'm doing. His property is terribly maintained. He's got stuff thrown all over the place. He lives like a pig.
They built the road on top of my spring. If it was me cut off their water, I would have been charged by now.
Having no water for a week and no toilets, no facilities is an absolute disgrace.
Could I take a note of your name, please?
What? This boy's surely phoned the security. Here they come now.
The security.
The people love what we're doing. They love the fact that I'm creating a lot of jobs.
They're not going to be creating jobs in the local economy.
Where's the mirror? My hair okay? The greatest thing I've ever done for the environment is what I'll be doing right here in Aberdeen.
These wilderness environments are our equivalent, if you like, of the Amazon rainforest.
There's a great big pond here. Now, the more muck they're scraping, the water's all bubbling up. Well, those trees are seemingly coming down, which they shouldn't be taking down.
There are people who don't approve of this. I don't approve of bullying. I don't approve of bullying to the people on the Many estate.
We actually just learned that one of them may have built their house on our land. We learned that last night.
I mean, all that happening on Michael's land that they wanted to buy?
I got out of my bed this morning. The whole house shaking, things falling off Finlay's shelf.
It doesn't seem to be people against the job. The only one I see is this gentleman right here, who I've never seen before until yesterday when he started screaming.
N.O.T. You have been detained under Section 14 of Criminal Procedure Scotland Act 1995. Do not
What's he done?
Well, we're back. Now, I want to ask you another question. What did you have to go through in order to shoot this film? You refinanced your home. What else happened?
Well, whilst we were filming, we discovered that several of the residents had had their water supply cut off by the Trump construction workers. And one was an 87-year-old woman who had had no water for nearly a week. So we went to interview one of Donald Trump's employees. We did an interview with him. And then we were filming at one of the other residents' houses when the police came down. They handcuffed me, arrested me, threw me over the bonnet of this lady's car, took me and the producer to Aberdeen Police Headquarters. We were put in separate cells, DNA tests, photographs taken. And we were then charged with a criminal offence, and the offence was breach of the peace. Now that charge was eventually thrown out by the Crown Office, but it was an extraordinary turn of events, and it was one that I've made films in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, and often been prepared for something like that to happen. But there I was in rural Scotland, being arrested and put into a prison cell. So I have to say it was a really bizarre set of circumstances. But it did make me feel all the more, really, that this story had to be told and the people had to know, to try and get to the truth of what was happening on the ground with this development.
That's a lot. We'll be back.